Hi guys and welcome back to Is It Worth It Reviews. Today we are going to talk about quite affordable headphone amp. It's not peanuts cheap, but it's not really that expensive either, and it's very new on the market, topping A50 III. And this particular line with D series of DACs and A series of amps is the oldest line with topping brand. And as you can see, there is a topping D50 III DAC that's stackable with this one, but I'll have a special review for that one because I do not want to cramp too much information in one video. We all have short attention span these days, and hi-fi reviews cannot compete with bears, cats and dancing bimbos. But back to A50 III, there is not much to talk about it when it comes to features because it's a standalone headphone amplifier. In terms of inputs in the back, you can see that there are both single-ended and balanced ones. Balanced ones are in form of TRS inputs, not XLR, because this whole unit is not wide enough to host those jacks. Single-ended are standard RCAs, and there is a mechanical switch to choose between them, single-ended or balanced. And the power supply is 15 volts DC, it's an external brick, and I've only tested this amp with its factory supplied power supply because I didn't have anything better in 15 volts variant. Then in the front, quite straightforward, there is on and off button that also let you select low, medium or high gain. Then two headphone outputs, one is single-ended 6.3mm, the other one is balanced 4.4mm, and the volume knob of course. As for the tech specs, this one is quite powerful and maxes out at 3.5 watts. I believe that is into 16 ohms on its balanced output, because single-ended has lower power rating, balanced has higher one, which also shows you that balanced output truly does feature more op amps and more power, meaning that it's not just, as they sometimes call it, connection for convenience, but it's truly differential design with different circuitry than the single-ended output. And nothing more to say really. It's topping, so I suppose if you look for measurements, they're almost perfect. It's like that with basically every topping device. So let's talk how does it really sound. I started testing A50 III with wide range of headphones and earphones, and I have to say I started first using its single-ended output, and I never noticed that it lacks power because, as I said, single-ended has lower power rating than balanced output. But A50 III has plenty power and drive on its single-ended output already. There's enough punch, there is enough just liveliness and drive behind every headphones that I connected to it, including something like quite insensitive gold planar GL2000s. They like good drive and good power behind them to really come alive, and A50 III did the job really nicely. Now, when it comes to tonality, it's once again, as you would expect from topping, basically very neutral, very oriented towards detail retrieval and clean, crisp tones, and I could not notice anything wrong with it. I remember when I tested first A50, or it was A50S, I'm not completely sure, I'll put that on the screen, that it sounded very resolving, but it was leaner and thinner in tonality, oriented more towards high frequencies. That was the case with earlier toppings like D50 DAC and that A50 amp. But this time around, I'm happy to say that it's not the case. They fine-tuned their sound signature, and now I could definitely notice where there's bass in the song, that the bass is full, punchy, hefty, and gives like nice full bodiness and nice score to every song and every tone. And that's an improvement. And I really do believe that if you're coming from like older A50 to this one, that you'll notice how much alive and punchy and more healthy in the bass it sounds. But that A50 is a really old model, and A50 III sounding better than it does not tell you much, because in the meantime there were some other really successful head amps in the same price category, and one of them was, for example, Topping's own L30. Well, this is actually L30 II, the second version, which is even better than the original L30. And I kept it as a personal budget reference below $200-300 because it's really well balanced, well performing amp that sounds alive and nice. And the main difference between it and A50 III is that L30 is a single-ended head amp only. It only has RCA inputs and 6.35mm output, and costs $50 less than A50 III. And I first started comparing them both using their single-ended outputs. And I was a little bit surprised to find out that they sound basically the same. If anything, L30 II had maybe just a touch more warmth and softness, but this time I'm talking about softness in a good way, like tones are slightly more relaxed and touch fuller and nicer to my ears. And while A50 III sounds like 97% the same as L30 II, from time to time I would think that it's just a touch more rigid sounding, like it's a touch more analytical, but not in a way that it gives you more information and more detailing, but it's just a bit more constrained and has less of that warmth and softness. And even though I consider them equal, if I was pushed to choose one or the other, I would personally keep L30 II. And it's also $50 cheaper, as I said, which just makes it a better buy. But as I said, that was when I compared them using only their single-ended outputs. Then I moved to balanced 4.4 output on A50 III, and I kept the one and only single-ended out that L30 II has. And in that case, there was a clear difference and advantage for A50 III. Yes, you do get more power, but to be perfectly honest, I didn't notice that much, because you have plenty of power even with single-ended out. But what I did notice is that soundstage immediately increased. Something that sounded more narrow and more inside of your head suddenly expanded, and there was more separation, more emptiness around me, and tones like instruments, vocals, basically all tones in a song sounded more separated from each other, like they stretched out, and the whole sound stage was just bigger, airier, and even cleaner. Like each of these individual tones sounded a bit cleaner, and I noticed more of tone trail. After that main tone hits, there's like cleaner tone trail and tone reverb, tone echo. And moving back to single-ended just sounds a bit congested and slightly muffled compared to that cleaner, bigger, airier sound of balanced output. And because L30 II does not have balanced output in that mode, when you compare it to balanced A50 III, A50 III has a clear advantage to my ears. Quick conclusion between these two units: if you know that you're only going to use single-ended output, go for L30 II, save some money, get basically the same level of sound fidelity, if not even slightly warmer and nicer. That might be like my subjective take, because some of you might prefer that slightly more analytical and rigid in the bass and mid-bass sound of A50 III, but we are talking like same tier, same kind of performance, and this one is cheaper. If you, on the other hand, know that you can use, or sometimes in the future you might use, balanced output, go for A50 III, because that $50 extra I think it's well worth it once you actually use balanced output. You get slightly more performance in every way. Then I quickly compared it to topping A70 Pro, which is bigger and pricier. And yeah, A50 III cannot really compete with the power dynamics and just how authoritative and full and rich A70 Pro sounds. So yeah, I guess it's not a giant killer. It will not cannibalize topping's higher models, but it fits nicely between something like L30 II and that pricier A70 Pro. Finally, while I will not get into details about the A50 III DAC here, a separate review will be dedicated to it, I did quick stacking just to check their performance together, and I liked the outcome. It's all of that neutral and sound with great drive, great liveliness, there is good punch, good kick, energy is really felt. And this stack together costs some $420 US. So I quickly compared it to something like all-in-one, actually two-in-one solution, like SMSL DO400, which is one of the best DAC and head amps in one and goes for $499. And I have to say that once again they are in the same tier performance-wise. And I at first noticed that topping stack actually feels more punchy. It has greater density. When there is like some sort of bass line or drums, it feels like they have more weight and more heftiness, more punch to them. And SMSL DO400 in a direct comparison feels a little bit more mellow and shallow in that bass line. It's just not as firm and authoritative. But on the other hand, in higher registers, like upper mid-range and highs, this SMSL feels slightly richer, and I think it can reveal some more subtle, crunchy textures and details from the recording a bit better than the topping stack. So listening the same song through any of these will make you focus on a slightly different things. Topping will drive that bass line and that kick and slam, and for example it will let you focus on a good beat, on the engaging beat, while DO400 will channel your attention to slightly different things, slightly more towards the mid-range probably, and the soundstage and the airiness and things like that. And I cannot say that either one is truly better, they're just different. But given that DO400 is a fantastic device and costs $499 and it's two-in-one, which is usually the more cost-effective solution than the stack, this stack for $420, matching it is actually a great achievement on its own. So final conclusion, quick and to the point, A50 III is a good sounding amplifier. It has plenty of power, it has good drive, and unlike the original A50, it sounds weighty and has healthy bassline. If you would only use it as a single-ended output amplifier, I do believe that L30 II is a better deal, because it sounds equally good, but you would save some money. On the other hand, if you can use balanced output of A50 III, in that case I think it's worth its price, because it sounds even better, like bigger, wider, more revealing, and has more of these spatial cues and tone reverbs and echoes and everything, so that balanced output is not there just to be there or for marketing purposes. It provides real quality upgrade and justifies the price difference between A50 III and L30 II. And in that case, this one is, I think, easily recommended. And that would be all for today, guys. Hope you liked the video. See you next time. Bye.